So to begin with, we need a character. And what I've done is I've created a character here in GIMP, and I'm calling him a teen goblin. I don't know why. I just wanted to do a teen goblin. I want him to be kind of tough looking, but also kind of cute, like he's still innocent and not quite grown up yet. So I have him here in GIMP. GIMP, if you don't know, is a great image manipulation program that is similar to Adobe Photoshop, but it's completely free. You can download GIMP, let me see here, at gimp.org. I can bring up the website here. Here we go. You can download GIMP for just about any operating system and start drawing and painting and manipulating images all for free. So what I've done here is I've created my character and I've got him in different layers here so I can turn the layers off and on for the different parts of the character. And what we'll be doing is we'll be cutting out the front and the side views to take into Blender to use as reference images. Now, of course, I'm also going to be using Blender, which, as you probably already know, is a free 3D animation suite of tools. You can get that at blender.org right over here. All you got to do is click here and download it here. It is free to use, free to download, and you can get it for just about any operating system you might imagine. Now, if you want to follow along on my progress here as I go, you can download this image here at my website at darrenlyle.com. Now, if you go to the home page here and then go to free tutorials, you can click on this. And then if you scroll down here to this little link, it says you can find reference images and scene files. If you click here, you'll be able to then download this teen goblin character. The download file is here. So this is actually the GIMP file. So to open this, you will need to download and install GIMP on your computer. So let's start cutting the front and side views out here to bring into Blender. Let's get the front view first. I'm going to come over here and hide the various layers that are in here except for this one front view. And I'm going to select that front view in the layers panel over here. And I'll go to Edit, Copy. And now I'm going to go to Edit, Paste As a new image. And if I do that, it will create a new image exactly as big as the copied image. So I'm going to zoom out a bit with the minus key on the keyboard here. And there he is. So I will call this front view. And let's go back and get the side view. So I'll come back over here, hide the front view, turn on the side view, select it, and then I'll go to Edit, Copy, and then I'll come back over here to this new image and go to Edit, Paste. And there he is. Now in GIMP, when you paste a layer or you paste an image into a document, it gives you this floating selection pasted layer. And what that is, it's kind of a temporary layer and you have to anchor it to something. So you could anchor it to this existing layer, or you could create a new layer for it to be anchored to. I don't want to combine it with this one. I want to keep them separate. So what I'll do is I'll right click on this and choose to new layer. And now that will give that its own layer in the document. So I'll call this side view. So now I have my front view and my side view ready to be saved out. And one thing I want to do is make sure that they're aligned properly. I want the feet and the eyes and the nose, etc., to be lined up between the side view and the front view. So what I'm going to do is turn the opacity down here. I'm going to hover right over here on the opacity and drag this down some so that I can see through that side view. And you can see the eyes are a little bit off. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click out here and press the Z key and click and drag here to zoom in. And then I'm going to come over here to the Move tool, or the M key. I'm just going to take the arrow keys on the keyboard and move it over so that the nose and the eyes are kind of lined up. So I'm thinking something like that. I mean, granted, my drawing isn't perfect. It's not completely aligned, but if I can get the bottom of the nose and maybe the mouth lined up like this, as well as the bottom of the eyes, I think that might be good. Now, the ear isn't lined up, and that's okay. I'm not too worried about that, but it's the nose and the eyes that I'm concerned with here. So now that I've got that lined up, I'm going to press Shift to constrain it and then click and drag it back over here like that, so it's more in the center of the image. And now to zoom back out, I'm going to press Shift Command or Control J to zoom out to full screen there. I'll bring the opacity back up to 100%, and there he is. So now I know that they're pretty well lined up. I mean, you can see that the belt isn't quite right. The feet are pretty good. Of course, the hands and the arms are separate pieces in the drawing, but it looks to me like the eyes and the nose are lined up, and at least for me, for now, that's kind of my main concern. All right. So now that I have these lined up, I'm going to hide one of the layers here. So I'll just deal with the front view. So now what I'm going to do is save these images out so that I can bring them into Blender as reference images. So now I'll just go to File, Export As, and I will call this Goblin Front View. And it's automatically going to save it out as a PNG. That's actually what I want. You could choose from different file types here, but PNG is exactly what I want here. So I'll save this. I'll export it as a PNG and click Export. Now I want to do the side view, so I'll turn that on, turn the front view off, go to File, Export As, and save this as the Goblin side view. And there we go. So now let's go back into Blender and bring those in. Here in Blender, we don't need all of this stuff. We don't need the camera, the point light, the cube at this point in time. So I'll just hit the A key to select all, hit the X key, and delete. Now, if you're brand new to Blender, I have a couple of resources for you. On my website, if you go to the home page, you can see that you've got a Blender Quick Start Guide here. It's a 25-page PDF file that goes over the essential tools and concepts of Blender that'll kind of help you get up to speed quickly so you can follow along. In addition, if you go to my YouTube channel and scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you've got this Blender Quick Start Guide here as well. A 10-minute video that goes over much the same things. So if you get that Blender Quick Start Guide PDF as well as watch this 10-minute video, you should be up to speed and ready to go to follow along in this series. All right, so let's go back to Blender. And what I'm going to do is bring in that front and side view into Blender so that we can see it when we're in the front and side orthographic views. Blender has a lot of different screen layouts here. One is the default, which we see here. We've got UV editing and animation and motion tracking. We've got a lot of different screen layouts that come with Blender. But what I'd like to do is create a new one for my character images. So I'm going to come up here and click the plus icon to create a new one. It'll say default 001, and I want to call this character images. Now, whatever I do to this screen layout, it will save it to this screen layout selection rather than changing my default view. So I want to keep the default and have this one to change. So what I'll do is go up to this little tab right up here in the very right-hand corner and click and drag out a new window. For now, I'd like to get rid of this panel, and to do that, I'm going to hover over the screen and press the T key on the keyboard, and that will get rid of that, and the T key over here, and that will get rid of that. So now I've got two of the exact same windows here. Now I can change the view or the camera that I'm viewing this through by coming down here to the View menu, and you've got the top camera, the bottom, front, back, right, left, etc. And what I want is the right camera. Notice that it has a shortcut key, the 3 key on the number pad. So if I click that, it will go to the right camera. And notice that it says right perspective. There are perspective cameras and orthographic cameras, and the orthographic cameras give you a very flat two-dimensional view of the scene. And for this two-dimensional reference image, I want an orthographic camera. So I'm going to come back down here to View, and I can switch from the perspective to the orthographic camera with this menu item or the 5 key on the number pad. So I'll click that, and there we have our right view. Now I want to come over here and do the same thing for the front view. So I could come down here to the View menu, but for the front, I've got numpad 1 here. So I'm just going to press the 1 key on the numpad, and then I'm going to press the 5 key on the numpad. And there we go. Now we've got front and right orthographic views. And these changes have just been applied to this screen layout that I created. If I go back to the default, it's still the same. All right, so let's go back to here. Now, if you don't have a number pad on your keyboard, you can always emulate the number pad with the numbers on the keyboard by going to File, User Preferences. And in the user preferences, you can turn on Emulate Numpad, and this will make the numbers on the keyboard act like the numbers on the number pad. And then just be sure and click Save User Settings. All right, so now let's bring in those images. To do that, I need to bring up the Properties panel for each of these windows. And to do that, I'll press the N key on the keyboard. And now if I scroll down, I have this area called Background Images here, and I'll roll that out and click Add Image. And now if I scroll down, I have this area where I can open an image and bring it in. Now this one's only going to be for the right view, so I'm going to choose this All Views menu, choose Right, and now I'm going to click Open, and here they are. So I will choose the side view right here, click Open, and there we have our character. Now I can adjust the opacity here, make him more opaque or more transparent. So I think I want to take him down to about 0.3 for the opacity. Now let's do the same thing over here for the front view. I'm going to press the N key. I'm going to hover over this view, press the N key to bring up the Properties panel, scroll down, roll out the background image section, and click Add Image. And for this, I want it to be the front view. Where's the front? Here it is. And click Open and bring in this front view. And there he is. Now I'm going to adjust the opacity again. What did I put the other one at? 0.3. There we go. All right, so now I have my characters in the front and right orthographic views. Notice that if I go back to the default view, I don't see it, which is fine. In fact, I like it that way so that the images don't distract me when I'm looking at it in the perspective view. So let's go back here once again to the character images, And what I'd like to do is bring him up so he's actually standing on the grid here. This red and green lines signify this grid space here. So I want those images standing on the grid so that as I create the character, it will be standing on the grid as well. So I'm going to go back to character images, and I want to adjust this X and Y axis. So even though the three-dimensional axes here say Y and Z or X and Z, here in the two-dimensional plane, we're going to be dealing with X to the left and the right and Y up and down. So I'm just going to click and drag in this view and notice that it scrolls in the X, and I don't want it to do that. I want the Y. So I'm going to put 0 back in this field, and I'm going to come over here and hover over the Y axis and click and drag and move him up. So I want him to be right about there. I've got 4.8. Let's try 5. That's a little too much. How about 4.9? There we go. So now I've got that foot pretty much right on the ground plane. I'll come over here, and for the Y axis, I'll go ahead and type in 4.9 as well, like that. Now, if you're using your own characters, the numbers here may be different. So I'm going to zoom out with the scroll wheel here on the mouse, and I'm going to press Shift and the middle mouse button to pan or drag him up and down like that. I can zoom in with the scroll wheel on the mouse, and there we go. So now I've got my character standing on the ground plane in the front and side views. Now, one thing I want to do is make sure this character is actually aligned right down the center of the view here. So I'm going to zoom in with the scroll wheel and press Shift and middle mouse button and click and drag down some. So let's take a look at him here. He looks like he's a little bit off center. So maybe if I use this X axis, I can get him more right down the center. And it looks like if I just click these arrows and take it to 0.1, it looks like that's more directly down the center. So let's go with that. Alright, so I'm going to zoom out with the scroll wheel again, press Shift middle mouse button to drag him up a bit, and there we go. Our front and side views. I'm going to press the N key and the N key to get out of those views, and we will use these as our reference images as we build our character. So in the next video, we'll create the base geometry for our character so that we can begin using Blender's sculpt tools.